I'm very, very excited about today's class. That painting behind me, for all of you, is another Jewish woman artist. The Jewish woman artist last time was Lee Krasner. This time it's Sonia Delaunay, early 1900s French woman. I want to
explain about your shirt.
Oh, yes, my shirt is also kind of Sonia Delaunay-like. It's a smock.
Oh.
Why am I would like.
No, it's okay. I did that. You can keep going.
Yeah, okay. I would like to say that I was aware and failed to mention last time on the 27th that it was International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And International Holocaust Remembrance Day and Jewish artists and whole responses to the Holocaust will figure prominently in this course. How can they not? They figure prominently even in the homework assignments already, in the homework assignment today, and maybe in all three slides, in 3 of the 4 slides. I just wanted to take a moment of housekeeping. You are very gentle critics when I asked you for comments last time by email. They're only housekeeping criticisms mostly. And one is to keep your phones muted because we did hear the ringing and it disturbs me and others. And don't talk to others, even in another room, when you go out, we hear that. So that was the only housekeeping detail, and thanks for that. And then the only other more personal criticism was that in all the homework we engaged in, and we did have, with everyone that handed me homework, we had a lot of back and forth, sometimes 3, 4 emails, not just one, not just yours to me and mine to you. I did respond to everybody. If you did not do homework, I didn't respond to you, but you don't get 30 lashes. But the one criticism I had was my use of, one person mentioned my use of caps as shouting. It's the standard symbol for convention for tech in text writing in the new technology. The caps mean shouting. I think you know I was not shouting or upbraiding anybody, but I will not use them in the future. But I think you could tell from my comments that I was warm and encouraging and delighted and responsive, and there was no shouting. All right, so let's go. I want to ask if there are any questions. Can I go back to seeing everybody all together?
Josh can do it for you, or you can do a spotlight up there.
What do I do?
No, never mind. I think Josh might have did it.
Okay. Can I see all 20 people all together?
In the top right corner of your screen,
okay,
Jonathan,
yes,
click
yeah,
the view
yes,
button
right.
and go back
Right.
to gallery.
Right. Okay.
And I think gallery. There you go. There.
Okay. We're back again. I just want any question. Whoops.
I think you just hold on a second. You just opened up an application by accident.
Jonathan,
Yeah, I'm there.
I
Okay, here we are. Yes, Steve, was that Steve Garrett?
I was just going to mention, I don't know who mentioned the caps being shouting. They are, but they're also used for emphasis. So you're certainly able to use them for that.
Yes, I understand. I was using them throughout to differentiate from your writing and bolding them. Yeah. So it wasn't just on occasional time. So it's true that that is offensive to some people. I've heard that remark before from others. Okay, so welcome. I'm very excited. Ooh, how did it get to be 107 already? Did I have any other housekeeping things? Do you have any other? I just wanted to say Susan is here, and also Jeremy. Say hello. Oh, you can't say hello. They can't see you, right?
Well, they can't see us, but hello.
Jeremy is my computer guru and technological expert. Josh always is too. I was with Josh last week. I'm with Jeremy this week, which is about 12 miles from my house. So I actually braved the snow and got out there today, but I didn't have to go 65 miles up to Josh and AA as I did last time, because I live on the top of a hill and my PowerPoint does not always come in loud and clear. We're trying to correct that for the future. So Jeremy has adopted me and is, as I say, a computer guru, a friend, and he doesn't know it. He's also a beneficiary. All right. So any questions or comments before we begin? We will go mostly on the homework today. Yes, Happy.
I had problems with the Lipschitz sacrifice 3. I guess I don't know the story of Isaac's sacrifice that well. I don't know what the chicken symbolized or whatever. I think it was a chicken.
Well,
But I looked at it from all different views. And from one view, it didn't look like a chicken. It looked like a person.
right.
And I just wondered what that meant.
Okay. Well, we'll get into that painting.
Okay.
So if you'll hold that sculpture. So if you hold that in abeyance. Any
Okay.
other general comments or questions from the last, or comments from the last class? Things I said that you didn't understand,
I have a question about what she just said.
right?
She talked about looking at it from different angles. All I could see was what was presented in front of me.
Very important, especially with sculpture. You raise a good point. This is one of the weaknesses of doing slides and reproductions. The way of compensating for that is to show the Lipschitz as a sculpture from side, front, back, top. That's a good criticism. That should have been done, especially because that's what he's doing. He's cubist. He's showing us multiple points of view simultaneously. That's what Picasso and Braque invented. Multiple points of view simultaneously. It's a new way of dealing with space. It is cubist. It is to be contrasted with the single point perspective window view way of dealing with space. So there's a new spatiality. There's even, in a sense, there's a relativity of space, because you don't, you know, I was talking about my house on the hill. I don't want to digress too much, but you do not know an object from one point of view. In my house on the hill, I approach it with a driveway, a long, long driveway. In the bottom, I see a little bit of the top of the roof. Then I go up there and I only see 2 garages, kind of boring. And I never see the spectacular view of my house that will get me all the money when I sell it, unless I am pretty much a half a mile away on another road and you see 3 dormer windows. And you know, dormer windows, wow, they're big sellers in real estate. So I know my house. I do not know an object, a single object or a person from just one point of view. I take a house, do it with your dear spouse, do it with your a piece of furniture, do it with your car. That's that in that sense, it's radical cubism, but it's understandable. It's just that when you do it simultaneously, you create some often harshness and difficulty and intractability and incomprehensibility for the viewer. Okay, that is, any other questions besides Jeannie?
I just want to say that I had the same problem, and I went on Google Images
Yes.
and found that sculpture, and they had multiple views of
Yeah.
it, which
Yes.
is how I got to see what
Yeah.
was on the back of it.
Yes, and in fact, there's some virtual views. Well, they're all, everything's virtual. There's the 360 you can take around a Rothschild Chapel, which we'll see later or next time. And there's a 360 view that you could do for the Lipschitz. I can't, I could have showed that. And I should actually have that to show it today. But yeah, that's very important. Okay, let's go to my PowerPoint and share the screen.
Stop two. Share.
Oh, oops, sorry.
Close that.
Here we go.
Where did my share go?
Close that right there. You're sharing now.
Here. Okay. I'm sharing, but I'm not engaged.
Hit the refresh there.
There's an interesting picture there of a young woman at a window
Yes, now,
pulling
that's
down
what
the
you're
shade.
supposed to see as you enter the class here.
Oh,
Okay. This is my my ingenious idea. Very immodest to say so, of how to show the window view of art and how it changes. We talked about Picasso and Demoiselle, and he shocked us and shocked the world with that first modern painting last time we saw it. And you all remember it. How can you forget it? And he was rebelling against the window view of art, which held sway for 5 centuries, 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, and 1800s. In the 1800s, we showed last time how it began to erode a little bit, but Picasso took it the full way. So he was rebelling against the window view of art, which was itself invented in, you can almost name the date in this case. Sometimes in historical events, as Steve Burke often mentions, you can actually get the specific date when something began. It's kind of shocking. And in the early Renaissance, 1424, Masaccio, Masaccio, was the key artist. Not very well known. The artists known are Leonardo, Raphael, Michelangelo, Botticelli, so on. Not very well known, but he was the one that rebelled against Byzantine art and invented single point perspectival view, the window view of art, the naturalism and realism, the ability to have a mimetic, three-dimensional mimetic or copying depiction of so-called reality out the window. Okay, so here we have, he got it, of course, from the Greeks and Romans. It wasn't invented by the Renaissance. That's why it's called rebirth. Okay, so here we have this lovely slide. The idea is mine, but I owe the technology to my brilliant computer guru, Jeremy. You see an outside view of the world. What in the world happens, and you've been looking at that for about 2 minutes. I can click here now, right? Yeah. What in the world happens when I close the draperies, close the curtains, close the blinds, and drop the shade, as she has done?
First off, you lose.
I have now blocked the three-dimensional mimetic view, window view of art. What were you saying there?
The first thing you do is you lose the color. The second thing you lose is the detail, and you go from sort of a positive to negative way of looking at what's out there.
Okay, but so how do we turn that two-dimensionality now into a positive rather than a negative, and not a loss but a gain?
It's impressionism in black and white.
Say again?
It's impressionism in black and white,
Uh,
if there's such a thing.
Okay, in black and white. Okay, think a little bit more. No, don't think metaphorical. Think literally here. What opportunity do I now have if I've closed off reality, if I've closed off the outside world? I
Yeah,
have
shape.
some, this is what takes me to modern art, right? So I want to look at it positively. What opportunities do I now have with a two-dimensional flat plane? Can I get have a piece of paper?
You
from
can
me?
see the shapes better.
Your own interpretation of what it is.
The shapes are more obvious. Just the outlines of the shapes are more obvious.
You mean the shapes that are in that painting now?
Yes,
that are
against in the shade.
Right, I'm trying to, I didn't really want to see that silhouetted shadow. That's a mistake.
Okay.
I kind of just want to see a blank shade. I want to see a piece of paper. Here's a piece of paper. Why isn't it there?
Because your background is screwing up.
We
Oh, my
can't see it.
background is screwing it up. You can't see my piece of paper.
Now we can.
Now you can. My piece of paper is a two-dimensional canvas, a two-dimensional board, and what I'm trying to show you, a two-dimensional shade, okay, which I can rip and tear and do all sorts of things with and throw up in the air. But what are the opportunities given that blank slate, that blank canvas where I can't look at the outside world? What opportunities are presented to the modern artist? Susan?
You can paint anything you want.
You can paint anything you want.
Right.
Yeah, that's sort of what Manet showed us when he did a nude woman in a picnic scene. What is a nude woman doing in a picnic? But take it further.
You can put any kind of dimension in it that you want, making it a three-dimensional object.
Yes, you can turn to what's wrong with two-dimensionality?
Nothing wrong with it,
Two-dimension.
but you have the opportunity to do it in three.
Yeah, but the opportunity to do it in two, in a sense, could be called by some more honest, because in effect, we have a canvas there. Why are we producing reality when a camera can do that? Maybe we should focus in a different way. Maybe we should focus on what we can do with two dimensions. What's going to happen if you do focus on two dimensions?
It's unlimited, actually.
Yeah, it's unlimited.
It's unlimited. Give me some of the things that can happen. What can an artist, what does an artist see or know now if he's not looking at the outside world? Where does his focus end up being?
In itself.
Yeah, one thing is it's turned inward, can be turned inward, and you can get all these feeling responses and emotional responses, and that come right out of your heart and gut and soul and mind. You can get, you don't have to focus on feeling. You can also focus on
the medium, the colors that you've
got.
Yeah,
the colors. How about, that's what abstract art is, right? A more autonomous way of focusing on color, light, shapes, form, texture. Okay, so let's try to make my point in the next slide. I did a little new aesthetic of modern art. So the new is with that lady with her two-dimensional shade down. The old is when it's up, when the window view is prominent. Let's look at these. New, art is illusion. Art has its own integrity. Everybody understand what that means? art is illusion. It is not reality. In the old way, art depicts reality. Art has its own reality or unreality, but it's not the window view of reality. It's two-dimensional, non-mimetic view of reality versus a window. It's why be a camera. You can be, some artists want to be, nothing wrong with that. I'm not condemning window view of art. I like window view of art paintings too, as you know from last time we spent a whole session on it. You have the autonomy, the independence of the 2D picture plane. The consequence of that, we'll see it more, is but you can't, in those three-dimensional objects in the frame, on the right here, you're forced to read into the painting. You go way back to the vanishing point. You know, the vanishing point is the point at the end of single point perspective, right? Which starts in the foreground and you have a middle ground and a background. If you do a two-dimensional surface, you may be giving up background, middle ground, and foreground. You may be destroying that illusion. And therefore, you put colors or whatever you put on this, on the canvas, on the shade in our case, it's flat. You tend to have to read up and down the painting. There's no necessity for major and minor. There's kind of an equality of objects, an all over approach. Can you see that with modern art? You can still use major and minor, but you begin to destroy that that all over approach. You begin, to destroy the specific focus, the major and minor. In the 1800s, we saw it last time in the realism of Manet and Courbet and Goya. Courbet in his A Burial at Ornans, remember that painting? Doesn't even show the corpse. The dog is as prominent as the non-corpse and the priest and anybody else in the town. And almost everybody is looking away or in any direction. This wouldn't happen really before the 1800s. Then Manet, remember the soldier who was cleaning his gun? He's not even in the firing squad. So there's no major focus. So it's a new view of space and time. We talked about that, cubism, multiple simultaneous perspectives. There's no accident that this is at the time of Einstein. I have physicists and other scientists in the room who can explain that better than I can. At some point, I'll try to give you a lay definition of what Einstein's about. But in one respect, in the easiest way of saying it, it's a change in time so that according to where the viewer is in space, time changes. Time is relative. It's kind of shocking to talk about a thing as absolute as time, like it's now 1:25, seemingly absolute, that is so relative, and not absolute. You already said I can paint what I know and feel. I can paint what I really see. I can paint abstraction. I can be abstract. I can paint whatever the heck I want and however I want. You can still use the religious, but secular is coming into play here from the late 1700s. We get far more secular, but the course says modern art and biblical influences, so we know religion is still possible. We're going to look at it, and I challenged you last time in 4 paintings that you had for homework. And the triumph of primitivism. We talked a little bit about that. Primitivism not used negatively here, pejoratively, but used positively. in Masaccio in the Renaissance, and for 500 years, it's the triumph of naturalism and getting more and more and more real. In primitivism, in honoring that, we don't have to. We do go back to older art and even prehistoric art, and it's one thing modern artists often have in common with so-called primitive artists. They're not interested in naturalism. And you could see, like with the Picasso, we were assaulting, shocking, violating versus tradition, from Fiddler on the Roof. What's happening to it? Any questions before we hit the homework? Confusions on any of this? Disagreements?
Jonathan,
Yes.
can you send us a copy of this?
Yes, I
Okay.
intend to send you a copy of a number of things
Okay,
for, not for homework, but as extra things.
okay.
And then to, also give you a little assignment there. Let's go to the ocean because you're dying to know. Is the person who asked me had to leave? Is he still here? No? And I'm sorry, he was desperate to know what figure is the outlier that doesn't belong in this painting, which I've now given you the title of. Andrea del Verrocchio was Leonardo da Vinci's teacher. In the Renaissance, a teacher, a mentor, always had an apprentice, the apprentice or mentee. The picture was Baptism of Christ. Here's John the Baptist, here's Jesus. Most of you knew that without the title. And then we have those two angels, sort of androgynous. Are they men or women? And let me go to a close-up because that's really the point. Which figure doesn't belong? And I can't see everybody. Jeremy, is there any way I can see people? Okay, wait a minute. I want to see you all because I'm going to ask you a question.
You have to drag it.
This way?
You have to, grab it on the end. No, on the end here, on the edge to make it bigger.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, there I.
Keep going as far as you can.
Yeah, is that all my people? 9,
No,
12?
you got more.
Well, where am I? I'm trying to see you all. You see me and the homework 2 assignment, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. How do I get to the rest of these people? Are they? I don't want to leave people out because okay. All right. Let's go to that view. Good. All right. I can't see hands in the case of those who are just on audio. How many voted for figure number 4 as the outlier? Raise your hand. 1, 2,
Which was
3,
figure number 4.
4. Take this information down, Susan, please. 4. How
Which
many
one are
voted
you-
for? I don't mean to be sharp. How many voted for picture number 3? Jesus. As the out is happy. Is that hand raised?
Yes.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again. How many voted for figure number 2? One of those angels. 1, 2, 1, 2, maybe 3. Okay, how many voted for figure number 1?
I did, but you can't see me.
Okay, so 1,
Which is
2,
figure number
3,
1.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. About a third of you. Yeah, that sort of went with the homework and with your responses. About a third of you were right on. And I was trying to get you to look just at the faces. Can I stop share? Okay. No, I want my PowerPoint. Okay. All right.
They can't see it.
Okay. All right. Get them. Okay. Sorry. you can see those four figures now?
Mhm. Yes.
Okay, and good, and I can see, now I'm happy. I can see almost all of you. I hate when I can't do both. And that's got to figure out how to solve that. Okay, so here we have four faces. And I asked you to focus on the faces, especially if you were having trouble with this. And why did the number ones pick number one? Or let's do it this way. Why would it be number one for someone who didn't pick number one? If you look just at the faces, that face in one is dramatically different. It would have shocked people to death without exaggeration.
Her face is fuller and round, where
There you go.
It's softer. There's
Yeah.
a softer color and feature to it.
Exactly. It is very subtle in gradation. It is a technique called Fumato that is made to transition between colors and tones almost without realizing it. The technique not only makes it more naturalistic and illusionistic, remember we're in the window view of art, but it creates these rich atmospheric effects like Leonardo, for example, did in his background, like in, he did some of the background in this painting and in the Mona Lisa. Leonardo defined it this way. He said, it's without the use of lines or borders in the manner of smoke. That's a quote from Leonardo. So he's got some depth, he's got some palpability, it was revolutionary. Of course, the story may be pure anecdote, but Verrocchio was said to have come back to the studio. He certainly would have been shocked because nothing had been invented and painted like this. This is a new technique. Shocking, like Demoiselle is shocking. I'm telling you, like Masaccio is shocking. All right. So he's reputed to have said, I will never paint again. Actually, he probably did do some, but he was a sculptor and he focused a lot on sculpting. Whether anecdotal or not, it is an incredible new technology, an incredible new technique. So that was the lesson there. Let's go now to the homework. One, I started backwards. Okay. Okay. We see all four modern artworks. I still see you all on the right. What?
Go ahead, move on.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we have four modern artworks, and I challenged you last time. The last two are obvious as biblical. The crucifixion and the sacrifice of Isaac, one Christian or Christian Jewish and one Hebrew. But I challenged you to say to think of all four, perhaps, but this is subtle, as religious, spiritual, and even Jewish. But before we answer that question, let's go to your comments and excitement or lack of excitement for number one. Let's show a big image of number one. Okay. How did the Mark Rothko make you feel?
Warm.
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 Calm.
Home.
Bright.
Bright. Light.
When I first looked at it, I felt warm and happy, but the more I know that you don't feel this way, but the more I looked at it, I couldn't get into it and I felt at a distance from it.
You felt at a distance. It was
Yeah.
distant from you.
Yeah, I couldn't,
Maybe I'm not sure why, Happy. It could
I
be
don't
that
know.
it's this artificiality, damn it, of the same problem we have, excuse me, of a two-dimensional
Yeah.
reproduction and replica. Maybe I can show you something, sorry, that will be better, but this will maybe better for everybody. What am I looking for? I'm looking for that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Here is the way the painting is really supposed to, not that painting, but a Rothko painting is supposed to look and be hung. This is an unbelievable photograph in its own right, but look at this.
oh,
Is that amazing?
yeah.
Ooh,
Now, what is this?
but I don't
is
like,
this? What somebody doesn't like?
I don't like it as much. I like it the other way, because the red doesn't call you in like it does in the first version.
Does the orange pull you in?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there was a real, here it's almost disparate.
Mhm.
I
Okay.
like it.
I wanted to show you.
It doesn't do it.
Do others feel that way?
No, I
I
like
feel
this.
they all produce a visual discomfort trying to stare at it and take it in the way you might take in the other paintings. It's visually disturbing. It's
That is a very interesting response, Bobby. It's visually disturbing. Do you mean maybe more optically and physiologically?
yes.
It's like blinding your eye. You don't mean it's the feeling in
No,
your
no, no.
in your heart or your soul. So or your
Exactly.
gut is disturbing. Okay, yeah, I can see that right on top of a Mark Rothko painting, and we'll go back to the other one. I just want to show you Rothko paintings. Oh, like they're about 10 feet high and 8 feet wide. I'm just roughly doing it what it is, and they're always a foot. They should be hung a foot off the ground, off the floor. You see the effect of that, and then you go up to it and you stare right into it and are almost engulfed by it. But if you don't feel engulfed, I'm not going to make you feel engulfed. I just thought it was
Do you mean that you get so close that you don't see the edges?
When you get so close, yes, that's true. The smudges and the edginess may disappear, which it shouldn't. You need that. I just thought the photo was great that the shirt was the same orange
Yeah.
as the orange in here. But okay, but back to your responses. Here we go. Is this it, Jeremy?
No, you want to go?
Oh, yeah, I want to go further back. Yeah, okay. All right. Okay. So, okay, I got the ocular disturbance, but your feelings,
Well, I felt, I sat and watched and looked at it for a while. And then I sort of felt like the warm colors, they evoked a feeling of calm in me, which is interesting, I think, because I mean, it's usually I think of cooler colors as being calming, but this evoked a feeling of calm in me. And I felt like they were washing over me.
yeah.
I got sort of immersed in it.
Immersed? Yeah.
I know.
Washing over and immersed are good words for Rothko. Washing over and immersed is an interesting response.
So when you put it
go ahead, Shelley.
when you put it next to sunset on the sea, then the Rothko meant something to me.
Okay,
It opened up to me.
Okay,
They were both calming to me in different ways.
Let me do that. Okay, the Kenset. Okay, yeah. That is an
I felt
incredible.
the same way. that I don't know how I would have looked at it if I hadn't already seen the
Yeah.
concept.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of the issues. Yeah, you're not, I'm loading the deck or biasing the response. But whenever you do a comparison, and you're destroying perhaps the fresh experience with the Rothko. All right.
The Knesset is horizontal, and so it makes more sense horizontally as opposed to what might appear like a sunset, since you've compared it with that, but it's vertical.
Yeah, very good. She's got an essential ambiguity here, which, by the way, art critics have pointed out, and it's been very profound. She said the sunset, what was your word? The Kensett sunset was more what?
Horizontal, as was the photograph, photograph of the fence and the sunset that you also used.
Yes, but you used another word for, your first word was, it was kind of a you meant it was more.
Made more sense?
Well, it was more, I think you were saying it was more representational, comfortable or something.
Yes.
Yeah, it's more comfortable to you because maybe it was representational. But here's what critics have said. They have, here, you've pointed out an essential ambiguity there. Sunsets and sunrises and nature are built along a horizon line. There's a horizon line, right? They're seeing this, right? There's an horizon line across the Kensett. How can this be an horizon line? Number one, it's patchy and smudgy. Number two, there are two rectangles. What else did you say, Bobby?
I said it was vertical.
It was vertical, not horizontal. Usually if it's landscape painting, if it's sunset, sunrise, it's going to be horizontal. Critics keep saying, why do you keep, they would slay me alive. They would turn me into Soutine's carcass of beef. Why do you keep using this slide, Jonathan, comparison? You're doing an assault. You're doing a dishonesty to Mark Rothko. It's not about that. It's not about horizon. It's not about nature. It's not about sunsets and sunrises. You got to a very profound, Bobby, and some of you did in your homework, a very profound critique and very sophisticated because this is an argument. I can't hear. Stay with me, but comment if you want to. This is a critique. Mark, did you want to say something?
I was just thinking, the more I look at it, and this is kind of silly, I suppose, it reminds me of the California wildfires and the Jewish lasers.
Okay. All right. You're still going. It is hot. It is. And some of you said, why are you calmed by hot colors? I think Jeannie said that.
Yeah.
You're usually calmed and becalmed by analogous cooler colors.
Right.
Those are blues and purples and greens and
Right.
so on. These are hot colors, yellow, orange, red. But you still feel a calm or something pleasant. Nobody felt discomforted really by the Rothko, except optically a little in your eyes. Am I right?
I'd like to
Jonathan, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Did you pick this very intense orange Rothko to react to for a particular reason, as opposed to his others, which are much less intense, darker? Was there a reason?
Yes, he does. His palette does darken over time and eventually turn deep purple, maroon, and black, which people like to associate with his suicide and depressive state. He was always a depressive, fighting it his whole life, and with an aortic aneurysm coming on later in life, and a big drinker and smoker. But anyway, with a wonderful name. I've got to give you his whole name at some point. It's like 40 names, 40 syllables long, because he's Russian, as the other three are, or generally Russian. Okay. No, I don't think, I think I picked it because it was, yeah, it's sort of, here, I'll tell you why I picked it, because it flew out at me more. It was more in my face than a more meditative, calming, black, purple, maroon Rothko. Yes. So I thought, I'm going to get right in their face with this. I'm going to violate their expectations. Now you're telling, painting is about violation of expectation. Bobby raised one that, how can it be a landscape if it's vertical and not horizontal? Mark Rothko did very few, by the way, horizontal paintings. There are a few, but not many.
May I make a comment?
Yes, of course, Sonia.
So I have a little bit of a headache. When I look at the Rothko, my headache gets worse. And when I look at the pencil, my headache goes away. And I've done it several times.
Yeah.
That's my reaction.
Yeah, I think it's similar to Bobby's. Yeah. You have you get a headache looking at the Rothko, meaning maybe he's succeeding with his intensity, his use of light. By the way, it's a very complicated process. Don't ask your 5-year-old to do this, and don't try it yourself. For the most part, I'm not trying to be insulting, but you will not, and I often do this with classes and even with artists, you will not get this reproduced correctly, because he uses egg tempera and he uses layer upon layer upon layer, and he waits hours and days sometimes for them to dry, and you can't forge a Rothko, is my point. And you also, as some people say with modern art, no, your 5-year-old can't do it. Mishka.
There's nothing
The
about
frame that he painted on this is the blend of the two colors. And
Say again, the what?
the frame, his
the frame.
the
Yeah.
frame that he painted is the blend of the two colors, of the red, orange, and the yellow.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, she's noticing that that's a proper detail and description on it. He's put his own frame in the painting. It's not that Rothkos are not framed with museum type frames. It creates a frame so that this is orange and yellow over red orange, is what Mishka is saying.
Right. And
Orange and yellow and orange over red orange.
I just have to say something. You can't tell a 5-year-old not to do anything. If they want to do something,
spoken like a true early childhood ed.
Yes, of course, I'm going to have a teacher. I'm not being literal, Jessica. I would tell us, I want my 5-year-olds to do art, and my 3-year-olds too. I'm just saying they wouldn't be able to produce the illusion and the light effect. Genius.
What they have might be better. What they have might be better than what they're looking at.
Absolutely.
You never can tell.
Okay.
Different.
Hey, can I finish what I was saying?
Yes.
To me, the framing of it in this blend of the colors, they're not primary colors necessarily, but primary, the extreme colors, softens it in a certain way, pulls it together in a certain way. And the line between the two colors is just a little tiny bit of where they blend, and pulling it out to do the frame, to me, just made it very complete and very deliberate, that this should be not sedate, but calming.
Yeah, yeah, and about 10 of you in your responses said calming. With the I know Sonia and Bobby added the words, you know, they were disturbed, they got headaches because, but I think they're responding to something else. So 10 of you said calm, even though they were these hot colors. One more thing, and then I want to move on. So I'm telling you, it's a great debate, and I am doing a disservice to Rothko. Most modern critics would say that now, because another thing that was just discovered, it shows you can still see things yesterday that you never saw before, which is incredible. And this happened to be done by my cousin, who's a very famous art person, and I was his mentor. And as all good cousins and mentees, he should outstrip his mentor, and he did. He's written dozens of books and curated dozens of shows, and did the first Mark Rothko trying to show something else, get away from this idea that he's doing Northern Romantic landscapes. And one thing he noticed just by looking aside, just like Bobby did, he noticed, what are you talking about? It's not horizontal, it's vertical. That's number one. Number two, he noticed something else. What's missing if it's a landscape? And if somebody wants to create an abstract landscape?
A focal point.
The what?
A focal point.
Well, yeah, yes, although he could be two-dimensional abstract, yeah, it is all over painting. It's not a focus, but there's no horizon line. In other words, this is a big revelation, right? Jeffrey Weiss was the first in the history of art to do it. He said, I mean, people had said these are squares, these are patches, these are rectangles over a background, but Jeffrey Weiss said, there is no horizon line. He put it better than that. He said the rectangles never, ever in a Rothko, if it does, it's a fake, never, ever go to the left and the right, the end of the so-called frame. They never go cross to the edges. So there's never a complete horizon line. You know, we couldn't have seen that. He was the first to write major articles on it. We better move along to painting number 2, which is not calming.
No.
Okay.
15.
Okay. This is a carcass of meat. It's very close, by the way, to a Rembrandt carcass of meat. I gave you a Chardin for comparison, a still life, but there's a better comparison here. But in any case, your reaction here, not, again, the same red, orange, and yellow colors of the Rothko. Isn't that interesting? But used very differently. What's your feeling here? Let's get, I loved Happy's response on this one. Happy as Marguerite. Said, this is really in her face.
Yeah.
This is right in your face. Boom. I have to agree. It's an assault on the senses. You want to talk about Rothko assaulting the eyes and giving you a headache? This is really an assault on the senses. What else?
My first comment was that it was gross.
Yeah. There's a grossness to it.
But it's not gory. The blue and the green behind it soften it.
The blue.
The background softens it.
It mutes it a little. Yeah.
Yes, but isn't it throwing, as modern artists will do in two-dimensionality, isn't it kind of throwing forward, Lynn, dark advancing and light, dark retreating?
Yes, it is. I think seeing it in reality would be more of an impact for sure. But I did not feel gore at this one at all. For some reason, the colors just jumped out, And it was more the color than the blood.
It was more the what than the blood?
Color, the bright colors, the contrast of the colors than the
Mm-hmm.
subject, really.
I agree. It's not about the carcass of meat, but
No.
it's a vehicle for him to express something with his brushes, with his colors, with what's going on inside his head. He's used the carcass of meat as opposed to try to portray it.
I think a couple of things. One, I think I see dimension in this. This whatever it is, it's not just two-dimensional in my eyes. I see definite a sense of depth in there, and I think the background blue helps that for me, helps me to see it. But I saw it in two different ways. One, I see it as a carcass of meat hanging off of some sort of steel bar. I also see it as a man upside down.
Right. I did too.
And
I did too.
Yes.
and that just put a whole other spin on the way I looked at it.
Right.
And I saw it as like a crucifixion pose with the arms outstretched, the top
Yes.
parts outstretched.
Very
So
good.
it looked to me like
Both,
somebody.
both ways it is a
That's
man. Both ways it is reminiscent of some kind of crucifixion, whether
Yeah.
those are arms coming out or whether those are legs coming out.
So you're giving me humanity here.
Right. And
Humanity, all of these artists are great humanists. You're giving me humanity here in the connection to a crucifixion. That is a schema that's used here, and you know it well. And in terms of its feeling of humanness, that doesn't seem to just be an animal, a carcass of beef. You're humanizing it. And Bobby said something like, whatever the artist is doing, which is, you know, throwing colors at us. You said something else, Bobby, about
He's using it as a vehicle for his paint, for his emotions, as opposed to painting a carcass of beef.
Yes, I think that's true. It's not just a carcass of beef. It's used it's a correlative for our emotional state and perhaps the artist's emotional state. You know, when I do this painting, I think it's a self-portrait. Now I know some of Soutine's horrific life, and terrible, by the way, food and stomach troubles his whole life. Died of a bleeding ulcer. They couldn't save him. Didn't even have to escape the Germans during the war as everybody else did, because he died on a hospital bed in 1943. But yeah, there's something that's throwing this into, remember our window that closed, two-dimensional? It's throwing us into ourself, or asking us something about ourselves or the individual painter. It's going internally. Yes. Go ahead.
Well, internally, especially, it's disemboweled, whatever, whichever
looks,
way.
Yeah, but I'm using a metaphor now.
Yeah, I know that.
What's it symbolic of? Yeah. Okay.
You can see his pain. It's very, he had such problems, and you see it in this painting.
Yeah, there's a, you want to say it's a carcass of meat? How can there be humanity in a carcass of meat? There is in this one, right?
Yes, definitely.
Jonathan, I see that he's hanging from hooks maybe and chains. I see it as a man hanging upside down.
Yeah.
And I got the thought that maybe it has something to do with being chained, slavery, or being chained to something that is not pleasant.
I think that's valid, even if it's not a man, but just a carcass of meat. It throws you into allusions to what's happening in the 1940s. He did this in 1924, but what's happening in the world with suffering and despair and dismay. It throws you into that. I could use it as a piece of Holocaust art. Let me put it that way.
As a what?
I could use it as a remembrance, a horrifying remembrance of the Holocaust.
But
It
it's
looks like he's lashing out at the canvas.
Sorry, one at a time.
Okay.
Bobby?
It feels as though he was lashing out at the canvas. It was almost a destructive process or feeling that, and I shouldn't put feelings into him, but I get that feeling that it was attack.
And those are the feelings you're getting too, right?
Yes.
You're identifying with Mishka.
I didn't understand, and I still don't, the red piece in the southwest corner of this. But thinking about it now is 1924, 6 years post World War I, and I'm looking at the background, and I'm looking at the inhumanity of whether it's a piece of meat or a human. This is
right.
Horrible.
You've
and there are all
got
kinds
it.
of discussions now, even about how we slaughter animals. But I'm also suddenly thinking about the blue background, which is a blue-gray steel background, and maybe there is some allusion there to the weapons of war. Maybe just the colors.
Okay, I can tell you that the blue background does vibrate tremendously and throw this thing in vibrating mode, because cool colors have different wavelengths than hot colors. But let's not, I don't want to reduce it just to abstract art talk. Harriet, you had a question, a comment, and maybe Gary. Harriet?
Yes, in regards to the background, I feel like that definitely serves the purpose of pushing this figure in our faces. And I think the painting recalls the violence and cruelty that's pervasive in the human experience. And I feel that it validated my decision to stop eating red meat and towards being a vegetarian, because on that other level, it makes a pretty gross statement.
I like that personal conclusion. Yes. So art, so somehow the art has affected you. So look what she's doing. Instead of art imitating life, her life has changed. Life is imitating art. You see that? Her life changed. That's her comparison here.
Before I saw this painting,
I understand.
I had come to these conclusions.
Yes, I understand.
I validated those thoughts that I've had.
Right. Gary?
I just wanted to comment. You called it a self-portrait, and Harriet was talking about the background. I think the old way of doing portraits was to have a dark background and then a very brightly lit subject. And I think it was just for that purpose, to bring it forward. This doesn't really look very two-dimensional to me. I think I can see a lot of three dimensions in that.
Well, let me tell you what's kind of two-dimensional about it. You can take that piece of meat, like we could a Cimabue or a Duccio Madonna, remember, in a blue robe, and I can kind of strip it off as a flat piece of paper. I can strip off that piece of meat in part as in its flatness, and take it and pull it, because it's so flat, pull it down off the painting. Can you peel it off?
It still has a sense of dimension to me.
Yeah, there is. It's thrust forward. There is some dimension. I'm not arguing that. Okay.
I want to add one more thing, John.
Yes.
That just sort of struck me. The carcass is being pulled apart left to right, And I don't think that's the way you hang a carcass when you're butchering it.
No.
I mean, it started to make me think of that old, where they would pull someone apart with horses.
Drawn and quartered.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so this is not, I'm not expert enough to understand that, but you say in the slaughtering, you're getting a movement of left to right.
The top limbs look like they're being pulled apart.
Right.
And I think when you hang a carcass, not that I'm very expert in this, but I think when you hang a carcass for butchering, you don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You don't pull it apart.
You don't pull it apart. Yeah, you don't pull it apart. Yeah. He's exposing, absolutely. He's expressively distorted and opened up as if he's opening up himself. He's opened up this whole thing to the world. Let's look at the third one with Time's winged chariot at my back. If I ask you what is the central violation of expectation here, the biggest, don't give me a small one, the biggest thing that violates your expectation here, what would you say?
The talus wrapped around his genitals.
The Jewish Christ.
Yeah, I think that's critical. It's at least in part or largely a Jewish Christ. Why in the world now? And of course he's a Jewish painter.
Jesus was Jewish.
What?
Yeah.
Right. Jesus was Jewish. Right.
Jesus was Jewish.
Jesus was Jewish. That's right. But he's usually painted in the conventional, traditional Christian iconography, not as a Jew. Although
Paintings are painted with the clothing of the moment.
The clothing of the moment,
Right, reflecting the societal clothing that was worn by the ordinary people.
Well, the prayer shawl, I don't think would be the clothing of the moment.
No, that's why it's so different from what you would expect.
Okay, all right.
A loincloth.
Yeah, the prayer shawl is replacing a loincloth. There is a halo there, but the crown of thorns is replaced by a head wrap. And what else?
Is there Jewish writing at the top of the halo?
Yes, it's
Hebrew. Yes,
Hebrew.
It's actually Hebrew writing, and it says Jesus the Nazarene, King of the Jews. And that was commonly in Henri. Remember INRI, which is Latin, but it's now in the second. I have it on the right-hand side here. In the second iteration there, it's Aramaic, but Aramaic written in Hebrew letters. It's a very strange thing. But it's saying, that's what it's saying. So we've established a Jesus.
over here, that's the top of the head.
What's that?
Refer to him as Jesus of Nazareth.
Jesus of Nazarene, King of the Jews is the full head, is the full inscription. Twice actually here.
Nazarene.
First in Latin and then in Aramaic Hebrew.
He was born from Nazareth.
Okay. So get me to my meaning. You told me it is a Jewish Christ, and all of you told me about all the suffering going all around it and all the Holocaust-like images, all the anti-Semitism, all the suffering. This was, by the way, painted after Kristallnacht. Kristallnacht, 1938, a little bit before the full-blown Holocaust, of course, but very much responding to that journalistic, not just journalistic, but that horror of thousands of years, let alone a couple of years in Germany. He takes out, by the way, German references. He takes out on this cloth here, something on this white cloth on the blue man. He takes out "I am a Jew." He covers that over, and he covers Nazi swastikas over too. We'll hold that, and because there's an easy reason why he would do that. Whoops. Okay, so you told me so this is the violation of expectation is that it's a different kind of crucifix. It's a crucifixion. It's a Jewish Christ. Why is he picturing the Jesus as a Jew and emphasizing that on the painting? What's he trying to tell you?
He's talking about how the Christians crucified the Jews because they say that Jews crucified Jesus. All of the surrounding images are of Jews being abused by Christians. Well, it doesn't show Christians, but we know it was Christians.
Yeah, so that would say he's Jewish, and that's correlated with the suffering of Jews for all time and for this time. So he's symbolically here. Get at the schema of the traditional Christian crucifixion. What does that mean? What does Jesus mean in that? For all the suffering in the Christian version,
Jesus died for our sins. Jesus died for our sins.
Yeah,
Redeemed
for all
the world.
you all know that. In the Christian version, it's a very different meaning. He's dying for his sin, for your sins,
Right.
my sins. He's a martyr, but he is going to bring you salvation, hope, redemption, resurrection. Not in the Jewish version. He's standing for the suffering of the Jews for all time, universally and specifically. I think he takes out the swastikas to make it more universal. I also think he may be worried about repercussions. He may be afraid of his life, for his life. Some have thought that. And so he obliterates, he does have, he came from Russia, and he does have all this fantasy folk imagery, but wonderful. This is the swarm of red flags. In Russia, they were, in the pogroms in Russia, they were vicious towards the Jews. Okay.
A question, where was he when he painted this?
He was in Paris at the time.
There. Okay.
Yeah, he was in Paris, and he fled to, as many did, to the United States during World War II, and returned to Paris in 1948. Okay.
I have a question. I just noticed something I had not before.
Yes, go ahead.
It's not a full cross as we're used to seeing a full cross.
Yeah.
It's a capital T, as it were.
Yes, that's good. It's a capital T, and don't forget, we haven't talked yet about why it's so white, and what is this beam of light or white that's so pervasive, and what do we make of that? There was a very creative answer in one of your homework assignments, which I think is potentially valid.
Could you tell us a little more about his life, or what kind of a person he was? And would you spell it? Is it Chaim? What is his last name?
Chagall. Yeah, he was born Moshe Seagal, and is changed to Chagall. I will do that. I will do that at some point. But he's, because I want to show you, if you take a picture of him, he's such, the face of his portrait says all you have to know about him. Let me show you. This is worth it. Where is this, Jeremy? Yeah, would you find it? Yeah, I know where.
He wants to go, right?
Yes, the face.
Yes.
I just want to show you, I can answer Jessica best by showing a photograph of him. This is so incredible a photograph.
That's like,
As to what kind of man he is. I'm not telling you that much about his life, I know.
how did the Jews at the time respond to those other paintings?
Lower left.
Could be, yeah.
Okay, yeah, look at that face. Look at those two faces. Yeah, it just exudes humanity and warmth and paternalistic warmth, I think. But let's get to the last one, if I may.
Jonathan, can I say one more thing before we
Yes.
leave that?
Yes.
It's something you told me to share, is that when I looked at it and looked at the different parts, it reminds me of how I dream and how things change from one scene to another, and how there are unrealistic things in it, like the floating figures above the cross.
Excellent. Yeah. Yes. All the floating, which is familiar and dreamlike state, or is it nightmarish in this case, but it's all fantasy and folk arty in Chagall. And he uses it here. So it almost contradicts the horror and suffering of the scene to use a mode that is kind of fantasy-like and dreamlike. There's a contradiction between a harsh reality kind of being portrayed and a folkloric fantasy dreamlike state in his figures, but it's kind of you could easily see it as nightmarish here, but that's a good comment. Let's try to do.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
The ladder next to the.
Jacob.
A couple of things. In traditional iconography, Christian iconography, the ladder was used to take down Jesus from the cross. It's very often a part of the iconography of a scene because you can't get up there. You're way down below. You need a ladder. But on the other hand, ladders are symbols for going up and, maybe hope. And maybe the white is lightning and death and whiteness, but maybe there's some sign of hope here and redemption. After all, Christ did redeem man. We do have this, the hope of the menorah, and we could make much of the menorah, which also has a halo on it. So notice a halo both on the head of Christ and the menorah. Very important because it focuses on the menorah, and a menorah is a key symbol of hope and redemption for the Jewish people. Hanukkah, like Pesach, is a redemption holiday. We're redeemed. All right, let's go to the Lipschitz. And where is that? Okay. At least I can feel we did 4 things here. All right, so the traditional story of the sacrifice of Isaac, to answer Happy's question, is that there's 3 personages, Abraham, Isaac, and a ram. Abraham is about to slaughter his son Isaac. He's asked to sacrifice his son Isaac for the sake of his love for God, to prove his love of God and his devotion. Even he'll sacrifice the love of his only son. There are really 2 sons, but never mind. This is the important son. So, and then there's the lamb or ram that's substituted at the last minute by an angel or by God. And Abraham, hold off, do not slaughter your son. What is the key violation of expectation here, the key ambiguity off of, now that you know the traditional Isaac story and the traditional sacrifice of Isaac story, what is different here? And that's where you have to start. What violates your expectations?
The chicken.
Yeah, it's very, very strange. The Isaac, what is he doing? The Isaac doesn't seem to be Isaac at all. Even in Cubist spatial terms, it seems to be a chicken. And by the way, somebody smart besides me noticed that the name of the painting is not the sacrifice of Isaac. Very, very important. Sometimes titles, and I know I didn't have titles sometimes and you were ignoring them. Look at the title first. Look at the obvious first. This is not the sacrifice of Isaac alone. It's the schema of the sacrifice of Isaac, but it's called sacrifice. So now you're dealing with a chicken and sacrifice as major violations of what you'd expect on the schema of the story. Here's the typical schema. Whoops. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so there's a typical schema. The knife, Isaac, Renaissance anatomy, you know, they love nudes. The drapery, Abraham about to slay his son. And this is wood here, not a lamb. He didn't want to take you away from the drama of the moment of the actual killing. So see, the ram substitution or sheep or lamb comes as a substitution at the end of the story. A Renaissance artist for drama and dramatic effect doesn't want to introduce that. So he just has, everything's horrific. You know, the fire, Isaac carries his own bundle of wood to the altar. He says, Father, here I am, and so on. All right, so here's the untraditional. So what's going on? This is a tough one. And it was the most difficult one for everybody, and rightly so.
There seems to be a dichotomy between the aggressiveness of the hand holding the knife and the shelter that he provides for another animal between his legs. It's almost like looking at the other sculpture where he's turned away and looking up, and yet this horror is going on down with his hands.
Very good. It's not unlike what I view as letting the viewer interpret what is there in terms of the person's own meaning and life experience.
Right. So what was your interpretation, Harvey?
That Lipschitz is allowing the viewer to interpret the piece in terms of, and its meaning in terms of the viewer's experiences and knowledges.
Okay, but can you? Yeah, and I agree that that's what we can do when we come to all art. Yeah, I don't, and that's what I wanted you to do. That's and not have the interpretation of Wikipedia and the critic first, or of the teacher for that matter, Jonathan. But what is the specific then relevance to your life experiential that you're talking about?
When I look at this, I am repelled by the fact that someone is about to kill someone.
Brutality.
Brutality, yes.
Violence.
And in a very primitive manner. There's nothing subtle about that knife being.
You're getting at something. You're getting towards the symbolism here, And you're getting towards, this is in the 40s and 50s. He's doing lots of these. He started them in the 1940s during World War II. I happened to choose one, the third in a series done over 8 years. In a sense, 3 of our paintings are exactly alike. It's quite astounding. I did that by accident. 3 of our paintings, in a sense, have this, what's that?
Your works. You have 2 paintings and 1 sculpture.
Yeah, sorry, my works, 2 paintings and 1 sculpture. 2, 3, and 4 are almost identical or related in their meaning. Why? Number 2, you had the piece of meat, the horror, potential crucifixion, the artist splaying open his own heart, kind of making you feel his horror and his disturbance. The Jesus also about suffering and in horror, and a response to the horror specifically of Jews. And Soutine could be doing that too in his piece of meat. Remember, he escaped Russia. But here, I don't want to, the biography is and is not relevant to the work. That's a tough thing we have to talk about another time. Whether we bring in the extrinsic or not, we should be able to get a meaning out of the work without the artist's bio, but it can add to it. So the suffering in pictured in Jesus, in the Crucifixion by Chagall. Now I'm on to something here. The horror and the brutality and the time it was done. Yes.
All done in a post-war period. They all can reflect back to the 2 wars. They're both post-war.
Yeah, Soutine was between the wars. It goes 1924 to 1938 to 1949. But yes, expand it out though into this symbolism.
Well, it's the oppression of a powerful, whoever, like authority type thing over a group. Well, it would be the group of, if you look at all of it, I would assume it would be the oppression of the, over the Jewish. It would be almost like the causing the diaspora. I mean, it's the oppression that causes all of this.
They're all oppressive. Yeah, they're all oppressive. The last 3 are all oppressive in their own way. Although I'm sorry, I don't want to leave. Lynn, is Lynn here?
You are.
Lynn? Oh, because I was going to say Lynn didn't see the Soutine as oppressive, so far as I remember. Okay, but in any case, it's all oppressive, suffering, brutality. There's a Jewish theme in here somewhere, and he's inviting you away from the sacrifice of Isaac. He's calling you it sacrifice. Who's being sacrificed? Whoa. Where's my, who's being sacrificed?
Abraham.
It's not, he's pulling you away from Isaac. He doesn't call it the sacrifice of Isaac. Isn't it the Jews who are being sacrificed and brutalized and violently destroyed? And isn't this potentially symbolic of that? And isn't that why I sound like Perry Mason now? Somebody on a stand. I've been watching a lot of Perry Masons, and he gets in your face, with about 30 questions.
That's true.
So, do you see where I'm? Where are you going? Where are you going with this? So, tell me what you think. I'm trying to answer why it's called sacrifice and why there's a chicken here in Isaac. Why is he pulling you away? He's got the schema of Isaac, but he's pulling you away from it. So to me, that means he's trying to universalize. He doesn't want the specific narrative story that you get in the Donatello over here on your left. He's pulling you into a symbolic interpretation. a metaphor for Jewish suffering, perhaps. Tell me what you think.
Jonathan, what is the other animal? It looks like a monkey of some sort.
No, yeah, it's actually the sheep, the ram in the story. I know some of you said cats and dogs, and we might have to look at this from a different point of view to get the sheepness, the ramness of it, and we'll try that. But so why? What about sacrifice in Judaism? We talked a little about sacrifice in the meat, the slaughtering of meat. There's certainly sacrifice in Jesus on the cross, and we're talking about sacrifice here now. Chicken was commonly used along with a cow as a sacrificial act.
It was a dove.
What's
Dove
that?
would be used. Doves would be used for sacrificing in the temple, as of course with cattle and lambs and goats.
Why am I under
Well, no,
the
they did
impression-
slaughter. They did slaughter cows. Yeah.
Isn't sacrifice a pagan tradition?
Well, it's also
As
part.
opposed to Jewish?
Oh, it was temple worship.
Well,
It was, but it stopped.
We gave up.
When the temple was destroyed, it stopped because there was no other place to do the sacrifice. But it was instead of human sacrifice.
Right. Okay. So what? So where are you going? Come back to the work here. Where do you want to go with that?
Well, you can look at it somewhat as sacrifice of humanity, because if you look at his face from the top down, it's open, like his body is open, and it's been torn apart.
Mm.
You look at Sutane's picture, the body was also torn apart.
Mm-hmm. And what does sacrifice mean in Judaism? I know when it goes away, prayer takes its place when the second temple is destroyed. If you read Leviticus and the first or Vayikra and the first parsha Vayikra, you're actually sacrificing not so much an animal or basically an animal, but you're sacrificing yourself to get closer to God. But I don't think that's the story here. So I'm still puzzled by this. I'm not puzzled to be drawn away from the Isaac story, even by the title. But why substitute a chicken? A chicken certainly doesn't represent all of humanity. So I'm left with a puzzlement here myself. And it seems chicken-like. We'll say it's chicken-like.
Chicken-like.
Well,
I'm not sure, and we'll look at some different views of this next time.
wants to say something.
Okay, yes, go ahead. Last comments?
Okay, I have a comment.
What's
Perhaps the chicken represents weaker people, because chickens are basically weak. They have no way of defending themselves. And a weak chicken can represent all oppressed people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I have another comment about the picture of this sculpture.
The picture of the sculpture, okay.
Yes. If you look at the chicken's head, it looks as if there is a tree growing out of it.
Yeah.
Now, I know that's in the background, but
Okay.
it looks like the tree is growing out of its head.
You've been too biased and influenced by my two-dimensionality instead of three-dimensionality, by my window view turning into two-dimensionality. But it's funny you mentioned that. I have a whole bunch of slides I'm not showing you today that show trees growing where they're not supposed to, and a shuffling of background and foreground. It's very perceptive by you. A photograph can do that. Photographs are not exact realities either, but it does look like that. So you can read it both ways. Okay, one more comment, Mishka?
We haven't discussed the character who's the primary or the only human-ish, maybe, character in the sculpture.
Abraham.
Well, is it Abraham?
No.
We don't necessarily, we know it, we think it might be Abraham because you put the Donatello opposite it, and that story is pretty clear.
It looks
But-
like depictions of the golem.
It could be.
Who? Say again?
It looks like some depictions of the golem.
Oh, yeah, the golem, the frightening Hasidic
Made from clay.
made from clay. That's a good point. If we're going away from Isaac, and we might go away from Abraham. If we're talking that this is about Jewish brutality against the Jews and Jewish suffering, he didn't make it easy for us. We don't have a Nazi sacrificing and killing the chicken, but is that figure maybe not Abraham? It's a good question to ask. Has he taken us away from that story, from that principal feature as well? Since he's taken us away from Isaac, maybe he's taken us away from Abraham. Well, I'm out of time. These classes should be 2 hours. They should go on for a full semester. Having 140 slides to show you is not very realistic. I'm glad we got to talk some, but I will say I still did too much talking. But here's what I want you to think. I'm going to send you some of my narrative and what I wrote down on the slides, and I'll send you a homework assignment. I promise it won't be too frightening. And but I want to just summarize by saying in each of these four, let me go back to the four. That's my last. Jeremy,
Where do you want to go?
I want to get the four together.
Go all the way.
The other way?
This way.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
That's it.
and I'll say the last thing I'm going to say. Please. Okay, so here are my four. And we didn't mean to shortchange. Well, we didn't shortchange the Rothko. We shortchanged kind of the Chagall a little. But in these four works, ask yourself, what is being violated for a work of art to get in your face or for you to have an experience with it? You are going to have a violation of expectation. You are going to be, and it's called violation of expectation. It's also ambiguity. It's not what you would expect to see or know. You're getting something different. And you should be able to answer now, what are we getting that violates our expectation in all of these? Even in the Rothko, we talked about potentially what could violate our expectations. And the point of this is not to throw an abstract term around. It's my contention, I've written on it quite a bit, that art, it's the ambiguity of art and its violation of expectation is what is used to engage, not in one art, or one painting, all paintings. It's what's even realistic paintings. It's what's being used to engage and bring in the viewer and create a feeling experience. There is not art without feeling and experience and affect and involvement. And so the violation of expectation, you told me in the Rothko very cleverly, could be that, is this a landscape? Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's not external at all. Maybe it's mystical and Kabbalah and inward light. Maybe it's going inside. And then in the Soutine, you told me you don't normally have a piece of meat as a crucifixion schema, and you don't normally rip it open to show your guts and innards, and is something, so something is being violated there for the sake of connecting you to that violation, and perhaps the artist himself. So that's why I said self-portrait. In the third, the Chagall, the violation is it's not the traditional scene of the crucifixion, the Christian crucifixion, which is a salvation and hope symbol, ultimately, and redemptive symbol to expiate man's sins. By the way, I just thought of sacrifices used to expiate. I just got something on the Lipschitz to tell you about that. I just thought of this second. But so in the Jewish version, the rabbi Jesus was a Jew, yes, but in this depiction, he is representing all of Jewish suffering at the time and perhaps universally, which is why he takes out specific Nazi narrative. All right, and in the last, the Lipschitz, I just thought of one of the things you're doing with the red heifer and with the chicken and with all sacrifice in Judaism. This is specific to Judaism. You are expiating, well, it's not specific to Judaism, but you are expiating your sins through the murder of the chicken. You wouldn't be doing, you wouldn't be murdering a human being. The chicken is standing in place of the human being as the one whose sins will be. Now, it's not a Christ in his hand, it's a chicken, but as the one whose sins will be, who will by his murder expiate man's own sins. That's a valid interpretation of sacrifice in Judaism. Another comment before we go, we're at 2:44. Comment, Shelley.
I was just thinking of, well, I grew up doing shlucha porous, where we would have a chicken, transfer our sins to the chicken, and then the chicken would be killed. And so that sort of spoke to me with this chicken figure.
That's valid. I think I even have a quote here from Jock Lipschitz. The thing of the fate of the user. Yeah. It certainly seems to be that he's broadening out towards the fate of the Jews and their suffering during World War II. Lipschitz says in an interview, I depicted a certain kind of ritual which we perform on a certain occasion. We are, this is Lipschitz, not me, we are charging some kind of cock with all our sins, and we are offering this animal full of our sins for expiation. During the darkest moments of Hitler, when I started to make these images, I charged the animal with all of our sins, and I prayed and prayed. He became very orthodox, by the way, through his through Schneerson and put on tefillin and everything. And I prayed. It is like a real prayer. And afterwards, after my real prayer, I literally did have to sacrifice the cock. So it's an interesting, it's a personal kind of story as well that Lipschitz is telling. All right. Any other last words? I'm so glad you're still here and didn't go away. Next time I do want to show you, I will give you a homework assignment, but I'm going to send it to you. But I want you to think of that Rothko. And my, as I said, my cousin, for one, my mentee, who I taught art to, who far surpassed me, in some respects, I'd say, would turn me into Soutine's carcass of meat for showing you all these comparisons with external reality. Is Rothko more internal than external? Here you asked me, let's finish with that to be complete. Somebody, I believe it was, oh, she's not, was it Bobby who asked me why I chose the red hot Rothko?
Yes.
Yes. So here's Bobby's later Rothko. Before he committed suicide from 1964 to 1970, he had this, he didn't actually see it done, so you don't know if it's exactly to his specifications, but he decorated this chapel in Houston, Texas. You must see it. The Manil Chapel, or called the Rothko Chapel. And here is people gathering in that non-denominational chapel with these late Rothko paintings. Very different, meditative. You're not going out to reality there, not external at all. You all agree? You're forced, if it means anything, and it may just leave you blah, I'm not going to have the experience for you, but it's an internal kind of thing that's happening. And I'll show you the 360 of that internal experience as our last minute of the class. And thank you for staying. Watch this. There are 14 paintings. Anybody know what 14 means in Christianity, Christian iconography? 14 stations of the cross. Okay, 14 stations of the cross. Rothko isn't doing 14. It's a non-denominational chapel. He's Jewish. He's speaking to everyone here, Jews, Christians, and atheists. So here's his 360 roundabout of the 14 paintings that are there. Wait a minute. That is not the Rothko. Okay.
No.
Okay, wait a minute. I got to get my Jeremy to save me here. Oh. Okay. Number one. Okay.
You can just look.
Yeah, of course. Watch this meditatively. No talking. Okay, those are the 14. You saw something very strange twice in there. Did you notice what it was?
3 overlapped.
Triptych.
The what?
3 overlappings.
Oh, yeah. Also known as a triptych. And also in the shape of a cross. The triptych came out of the Renaissance and usually featured in the middle. Can you go to one of them, Jeremy, here and stop it? Any triptych. So the triptych was normally part of an altarpiece. The Renaissance used it to great effect and affect, feeling, and pictured.
Right here.
Here we are. Okay.
The
Oops,
Father,
sorry.
the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, you could say it has resonances with the Holy,
Trinity.
The Holy Trinity. Yes, the Trinity. We saw a Trinity of Masaccio. It also here resonates with the cross, right? He decided that last minute. He wasn't there. He gave instructions. He died. He committed suicide in 1970. But he decided that for 2 of these series of 3, these trinities, this triptych, he would raise one to be cross-like. It's itself in kind of a Greek, the chapel, I can't show it to you here, is in a Greek cross. So he's resonating with the Greek cross, and in the architecture, and literally in the triptych, he's bringing up the crucifixion symbol. But this is for all denominations. It's non-denominational, and people flock to this place. It's like a wonder of the world now. The Rothschild Chapel, not now, but it was taken over by the son, Christopher Rothschild, who's the chairman now, and funded by very wealthy oil folks now dead, known as the Manils. But he was commissioned to do this. He did agree to the commission. He never saw it completed, but this is what we think he would have done. People do all sorts of meditative and non-meditative things here. They have baptisms, they have weddings, they come to meditate. 8 hours
Dance
a day.
recitals.
What's that?
They had a dance recital in the first shot.
Yeah, that's right. That's the way it's intended. And he did have another commission before this that was very famous for the Four Seasons. I don't know if any of you were in the Four Seasons,
The hotel, the restaurant.
the restaurant of the Seagram building in New York. I was there for Susan's dissertation celebration. I must say it was not very good. The Four
restaurant or the
Seasons,
dissertation?
not the dissertation.
Oh,
The
it's-
Four
yeah.
Seasons restaurant was going to be decorated. I'll show you what some of those were to look like. And Rothko withdrew that commission because he didn't want these rich people. He was kind of a leftist, communist, Marxist sympathizer. He didn't want these rich people to enjoy their meal, and he didn't want to have anything to do with them. And in fact, his paintings will show you he was trying to make them uncomfortable with the paintings. They never got there because he withdrew the commission. It was $35,000, a lot of money then. And they're most of them are hanging in the Tate Gallery in London now, but they're all over. And they are also dark purples and maroons and such. Any questions or comments, problems, issues before we leave? Remember ambiguity, remember violation of expectation. I will send you your homework. I will send you your slides.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye now. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Lots to chew on.
See you all later. Hope you all enjoyed.
Yep.
Thank
Jonathan,
you.
can we have a minute since we haven't connected yet?
Oh, sure.
Well,
Yeah.
logistically, are you still going to be on? Well, still a lot of people on.
Write me your comment.
Okay.
Write me, yeah, let's do it
people
off.
off, Jonathan.
Yeah, write me your comments.
Will do.
Jessica, Mishka, Shelley, the rest of you. Give me your comments directly, email or call me. I want to have them.
Let them go. Let them.
Yeah,
I'll speak with you.
what's that?
I'll speak with you.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and I'll talk to some of you later. Thank you, Josh.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Just want Mishka.
Sorry, I was on the phone.
No,
Thank
we're
you so
going to do
much.
this. We're going to speak offline. I'm shutting us down.